Welcome into It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I am Taylor. Find me on X at Taylor_Witt. And here with me while Austin is on vacation, jet setting around the world, is good friend of the show and film analyst for RGR Football and NFL Draft Scout for Bleacher Report, In Harm's Way 19 on X. You all know him and love him, Dan Harms. Dan, thank you as always for pinch hitting, helping us keep this show floating while one of us, I won't name which one, but one of us is off doing whatever and not doing his responsibilities for the pod. How the heck are you tonight?
I'm doing well, and it feels like Austin is really starting to avoid the podcasts where we all get together and talk
Yeah.
ball because every time I've come on lately, he's over in some other country
Uh-huh.
or on a jet, just like having fun, and we're all like, "Hey, dude, it's business
Oh,
time."
it's ridiculous. I can't stand it, but I guess I got to let him live his life. But I am, of course, thrilled to have you step in for him, and we've got a great show for everybody. We've got news. We've got I called it "What is happening," but it's really just going to be a little bit of a AFC seed check-in, a little stock check-in, and then recapping the Commanders and previewing the Bills. So without further ado. Injury news first this week for the Chiefs. Pacheco is week to week with an MCL sprain. He didn't practice on Wednesday. We're recording this on Wednesday night, so I'm not sure what the rest of the week is going to look like, but they call them week to week. I usually feel like when a player is named week to week, that's probably at least 1 week. You would think that Pacheco probably doesn't have a great chance of suiting up on Sunday against the Bills. I know obviously Elijah Mitchell's in the fold. Kareem Hunt's he's been battling a knee thing, but he's fine and he practiced in full. How are you feeling about the Pacheco injury, the running back room, that kind of situation these days?
Yeah, I feel like this is when you week to week and you have one game before a bye week. That means, hey, you're going to get 2 weeks off, Isaiah,
Yes.
so you can rest
Yes.
up your MCL. Like that's
Right.
exactly how it feels to me. I mean, I've been asking for Bashar Smith to get more run for
Hmm.
the entirety of the season. So as much as it hurts, I think the committee itself is a good committee. Pacheco, Hunt, and Smith all bring you a little bit something different. So
Hmm.
the fact that you don't have Pacheco for that three-headed monster, if we want to call it that, in the backfield for Kansas City is not it's not a great feeling. However, I do think that Smith offers more than he's been given to this point. So I'm excited for that because I do think him and Kareem Hunt together make a good 1-2 punch. You have the thunder and lightning kind of aspect where
Hmm.
we've seen Isaiah be more of that ground and pound kind of guy who just runs in the back of the offensive line from time to time.
Hmm.
And then honestly, Hunt looks fantastic this year, where he's able to
Yes.
find holes, he's patient, he's a little more explosive. And so when you have somebody like that with a young guy who's playing basically like wide receiver running back for you, who also can run outside zone. That pitch they had against the Commanders showcased, I think, how they should utilize him a little bit more.
Hmm.
I am excited about what those two together with the bulk of the work could look like.
Yeah, it's funny. Kareem Hunt gets an off season to work out and to prepare to be in an NFL
Right?
team, and he looks younger. He looks spry. This has been hammered on a lot of broadcast and stuff, but he's actually more effective in short yardage situations than the Philly tush push this year. So he has been an absolute wrecking ball. That's been great for the offense. And you're right. Pacheco was kind of that like middle ground where he's not obviously as stout and as short yardage special as
Hmm.
Kareem, but he was able to do kind of some of the more three down back type of stuff. And without him, they're just going to spread it around a little bit. And I agree with you. I am super excited about Brashard Smith and his potential to keep growing in the offense. And really this is a learning experience for him that if, when Pacheco comes back and he can kind of slide back into not being the guy, then he can call on that for the playoffs and moving forward. So should be a good opportunity for him. And obviously the Bills defense is very gettable. We'll talk about that, but this is a fun matchup to be able to slot in the new rookie and see what he can do. Moving on, we still Trey Smith. He gave it a whirl at practice, according to what Andy was going to say before the practice started. Was technically called a limited participant in practice with the back spasms. He seemed like he was on track to play last week. He was I mean, a lot of reporting was that he was going to give it a go during the game, but then he never got a practice in, and so obviously they
Yeah.
held him out of that one. But he's back to limited today, which seems to trend upward for his availability this week. Backs can be weird; they can flare up and cause all kinds of setbacks later on in the week and stuff. So we'll see kind of how that transpires. But this offensive line could sure use their big highest paid guard in football back out there soon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you look at just the matchup against the Commanders, they were trending down defensively. Marcus Mariota's the backup quarterback starting for them. I'm not trying to say that they
Took the game
purposefully
off. Yeah,
put the game off for Trey
yeah.
Smith, but they put the game off for Trey Smith and
Hmm.
said, go ahead and rest up your back because we don't, like you said, they are tricky. And specifically for offensive linemen who have to carry extra weight. You guys have all seen the before and after pictures of guys who retire, right? Like look at Andrew
Yeah.
Whitworth now. Like they
Yes.
look completely different.
It's
They have to
crazy. It's crazy.
manifest more weight. And so Trey Smith is a giant person in general. He's even bigger than he would naturally be because the offensive line you have to put on more weight, which naturally creates more problems with your back. So if you
Mhm.
can give him a week off where he doesn't have to worry, he probably could have gone back out and played against the Raiders if we're being honest. But
Sure.
again, they were working the Raiders, so they said, "Hey, go rest your back. We don't need you right now." And they didn't need him against the Commanders. So although we'll get to Mike Caliendo in a little bit,
Yes.
but
Yes, we will.
I'm excited to have him back again. I think that this is even with Jalen Moore and Mike Caliendo in there right now in the last 2 weeks. The offensive line's playing at a pretty high level, and it's helped out Mahomes a lot as we've seen. So just the fact that I think when they get healthier, we talked about post bye rest for Pacheco. It would not shock me. Okay. Wouldn't
Mhm.
shock me if Trey Smith also got the week off, considering Ed Oliver is not going to be playing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me in the slightest to them just be like, we probably don't need you for this game. Go rest again. But I do think he probably ends up playing in this game, especially if they check out, everything looks okay and there's not a big risk of re-injury. But I'm excited to see what this offensive line continues to look like once everyone comes back and everyone's healthy.
I completely agree. I think it'll be really instructive if Trey Smith, stays at least a limited participant on Thursday and Friday. I think that'll be a really good sign that they plan on playing him. If he practice today and comes in tomorrow and feels like, hey, coach, I can't go, and they go back to do
Yeah.
not practice, that's probably a pretty good sign that he's going to sit out. But we will see how that goes. You mentioned Jalen Moore, and of course he was in because there's still really not a great idea about the return date on Josh Simmons. But updates last week from Andy and Clark and everybody indicated that, he was doing everything right by them. He's taking care of families. He's communicating well, all the stuff that you wanted to see. Everyone was just really concerned about the unknown for a while. It was more just like, is this like, did he go truant on the team and AWOL and all that stuff? And no, everybody's on the same page, which is great. Jalen Moore filled in for him Monday. Up and down, we'll talk about his performance in more depth there, but Josh Simmons is, of course, really the last guy that is on the not practicing injury report, other than Hollywood Brown sat out with an illness today. Um, Illnesses, typically they've got a pretty wide range. We'll see what it does for the rest of his availability this week. I'm hoping to see at least a limited participation in Thursday or Friday, because then I would assume that by the time Sunday rolls around, he'll be all right. But if we don't see him practice for the rest of the week, that's an injury, kind of. Illness is an injury. That's an injury that could spell some issues for the Chiefs. Not a ton now that Rice is back. Obviously, before the days of Rice coming back and Worthy coming back, obviously Hollywood was counted on to do a lot. But
Mhm.
wide receiver room seems pretty deep. Tyquan Thornton's emerged. There's a lot of good vibes going on right now in that room. Not super concerned about this illness tonight on Wednesday night, are you?
No, not at all. He'll probably be practiced tomorrow, which is usually how
Yeah.
these things go. They get fluids. They have a ton of easy things to get overnight throughout the day to get them ready for next week as well as the game. Especially because if he's feeling a little bit of ill effects on Sunday, they have a bye the next week. So
Right.
find some way to get through that game, and then you have 2 weeks off.
And Hollywood Brown's a grizzled vet at 28 years old, so
28
he's
years.
he's getting up there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, tell me about it. That does it for the Chiefs on the injury front. Those were the three guys, Simmons, Pacheco, and Hollywood, that did not practice. Trey Smith was limited. Full practice, but guys that were on the injury report. Nick Bolton came up with a knee injury in the game against the Commanders, but fully practiced on Wednesday. Had an MRI and had no structural issues or concerns or anything. So I'm sure the stout linebacker will be good to go there. Kareem has been battling stuff for a couple weeks. He came up with an ankle, even though it was a knee last week. So probably just some old guy rest stuff for him too. But he practiced in full. Chuck Amenahu had an ankle. Brashard Smith had a toe, and Jawan Taylor's come up with knee and shoulder issues for the last couple weeks, but practicing in full. So that is the Chiefs' injury news. The only other really notable item of news this week, a fun one for people that have been wanting Chris Jones to get what he wants. Defensive tackle, old friend of the team, Mike Pennell, was able to talk his way out of the Cincinnati Bengals and back onto a plane and onto the Chiefs roster within 24 hours. And they're dealing with the defensive tackle depth issues, especially after the loss of rookie Omar Norman-Lott with the season-ending ACL. The Chiefs did waive defensive end Malik Herring in this move, which Malik had been hanging around the team for a while. Wouldn't be surprised if another team doesn't immediately claim him, that he could be a practice squad candidate. What were your thoughts on the return of the big beast, Mike Pennell?
This whole situation just pisses me off to no end,
Yeah,
guys. Like,
yeah,
it's just so frustratingly stupid to see the Chiefs go out of their way to trade for Derek Nottie, who they cut. Then they cut Mike Pennell, who they kept around because they didn't want Derek Nottie. And
yeah,
now they bring him back after he talks his way out of Cincinnati. This is a baffling situation of aging old defensive tackles that the Chiefs probably shouldn't even have on the roster, but here
yeah,
we are. And I'm
yeah.
not saying anything about Mike Pennell. Mike Pennell's
I
been
get it.
fantastic for them, but we're talking about 34, 35-year-old defensive tackle who they
Mhm.
have to bring back because they don't have anybody else. Like, just think about this. They have not been drafting defensive tackles. They bring Jerry Tillery in, who's really effectively done nothing for them in Kansas City. I like the upside
Agreed.
of Omar Norman-Lott, but they played him out of position and forced him to put on weight, which created injury problems with his ankles. And now we're seeing he tore an ACL.
Mhm.
Cool. And now you have to bring back Mike Pennell because you have nobody else on the roster. This is a mismanagement of the defensive tackle position. I'm glad Mike Pennell is back. He's going to be useful, but it pisses me off.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's been for a team that has handled so many situations so well and intelligently in the past. This has just been a whiff. It's been a whiff for, ever since like you said, the whole Noddy situation. And then, he goes to the Jets and then they have to trade for him to come back. And then
When he was going to
obviously
get cut. He
he
was
was,
going to
yeah,
get cut.
exactly. He was definitely going to get cut. It was crazy. And then, he's been, say what you will about PFF grades, but he's certainly been graded as one of the worst interior defensive linemen in football. And now, okay, so now Pennell comes back. You still probably, I don't know. I think ideally you want to add to this room again, probably through a
Yes.
trade. If you're aggressive about the season, and if Veach can go out there and find a good trade partner and bring in some extra talent there, I think this is the room where you would make the biggest impact. I know everybody's kind of looking at running back. There's some other stuff the Chiefs could do, but certainly, defensive tackle is going to be priority number one for sure. That does it for the news. Not a whole lot else going on as the Chiefs prepare to take on the Bills this week. So we are going to get into
what is happening,
and we're going to do just a check in across the conference, across the AFC. And I'm going to talk about the 7 teams that are in the seeds 1 through 7 right now. And I just want to kind of get a temperature check from you if you feel like they're pretty appropriately placed in the pecking order, if you feel like they're due for regression, or if you think that they've got a little bit more than what they've showed so far. And of course, we're going to start with one of the more interesting stories of the NFL season and one of the more interesting teams. Of course, that's the Indianapolis Colts. They are the 1 seed. They beat the Titans this week 38-14. They have the best record in football at 7-1. They've really only played 2 teams that are, in the hunt basically this year, in the Broncos and Rams. They split those games. They lost to the Rams. They could have easily lost to the Broncos if not for a late special teams penalty when they were going to try a 60-yard field goal, and then the Broncos used leverage and they kicked a 45-yarder to beat them. Jonathan Taylor is certainly an MVP candidate. He has been unbelievable this year. And Daniel Jones has been reborn in this Shane Steichen led team. Do you see them finishing at or close to the top of the AFC? Do you feel like they're going to turn back into a pumpkin? Like where your temperature check right now on the Indianapolis Colts?
I do think Daniel Jones turns back into a pumpkin at some
Yeah,
point. Like, I
it's
I
fair.
don't buy the 13 touchdowns, the 3 interceptions, and everything. He's leading the NFL in EPA at 75.5.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes just behind him at 75.3. So
same guy, right?
yeah, it's obviously the exact same quarterback as we have all come to know from Daniel Jones. And I give my flowers to Shane Steichen. He's done a good job.
Yeah,
Obviously, when you I'm not going to go on a soapbox on Anthony Richardson, guys. I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
However, they managed that situation just about as poorly as the Chiefs have managed the defensive tackle situation in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So
Good
that
point.
shows you a little bit of, I think, what happened. Shane Steichen clearly wanted a different quarterback, but he knew what he was getting in Anthony Richardson. So, like, you can't have it both ways with a guy who has no experience, but then also want a guy with experience. So
Mhm.
Daniel Jones has experience. He's point and shoot, basically. First read, couple, maybe second read here. Tyler Warren, we've got some guys that catch the football. Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce is coming on strong. Love Josh Downs. I
Yeah.
do think that everything makes sense offensively. Again, this is a win or die with Jonathan Taylor, who has been not just he's been kind of better, I'll say, than Saquon Barkley was last year.
Yeah.
And that's not
Certainly
and
right on
it's
pace. Yeah.
yeah, it's insane what he's doing right now.
Yep.
So overall, the offensive line's also playing exceptionally well. And Daniel Jones, to his credit, he's got 35.1% QB pressure percentage. For comparison, Patrick Mahomes is the fewest in the NFL at 22.6%.
Mhm.
So he's getting more pressure than a guy like Patrick Mahomes, and he's not getting sacked as much, only has 9 sacks. So he's done really well of mitigating sacks on his own, as well as kind of making those micro movements in the pocket to get the ball out. So there's clearly been some growth, development from going from a bad situation in New York to the Colts. So I think everything's there. I think Lou Anarumo's done a really good job with their defense, but I do expect this team to kind of come back to earth a little bit. They're still going to be probably a 1 through 3 seed in my
Sure.
mind, but I
They're going to
think
win
we're
the
probably going to see
South.
them fall off a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they're interesting and, they've done some really good things against a soft schedule. I mean, that's the other thing is, some of these teams have really not been tested very much, but when you beat the teams you're supposed to, and when you go out and you beat the Titans 38-14,
Yeah.
you're a good ball club. And I agree with you. I think that they're a contender this year, no question about it. They've won 7 out of their first 8 games, and the South is not looking super competitive. I mean, obviously you got the Jags hanging around. Texans have been really struggling, and everybody knows the Titans are one of the worst teams in football.
Yeah.
So I think a top 4 seed for them is would be shocking if they didn't win the South. But then what do they do from there? How do they position within the rest of the AFC? Still to be determined. Number 2 seed is the New England Patriots, who beat the Browns this week 32-13. The Pats are 6-2. Drake May is also, like Jonathan Taylor, playing like an MVP
Yeah.
candidate right now. And they just shredded one of the best defenses in football. Say what you will about the Browns offense, but they know how to play some defense. And Mike Vrabel has that team playing confident. They're playing good ball. They too, this will be a bit of a theme with all these upper tier AFC teams, but they really haven't played too many people. One of the easiest schedules in NFL history by some metrics in their total picture. But, their one big test they had this year was the Buffalo Bills, and they went in to Buffalo and they beat them. So they're confident, they're rolling. Do you see the AFC East title roll that the Bills have had of 5 in a row? How in jeopardy is it? You feel like scale of 1 to 10? How confident would you be in the Patriots knocking that off and winning the AFC East this year?
I'm at about a 7,
Sure,
and
I think that's
I
fair. Yeah,
really, I love Drake May. I love Drake May coming out. Like, I was
yeah,
really excited about him. And then going to New England, I was worried because Gerard Mayo took over. And I'm like,
hmm
I don't know what's going to happen. And then you get an adult in the building. They bring back Josh McDaniels, who is an adult offensive coordinator, not an adult head coach. We've seen he's a
right.
jackass as a head coach,
Yes,
but an adult
yeah.
offensive coordinator.
He's probably
And
still a
Drake,
jackass as an offensive coordinator. We just don't see it as much, but he certainly knows how to coordinate.
absolutely, but he respects Mike Vrabel, so he's been put
Yeah,
in line a little bit to kind of do his job. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of how well Drake May is playing, he has been pressured 113 times. Of all quarterbacks who are top 10 in EPA, only one has more pressures. It's Justin Herbert with
Whew.
148.
He's
So,
had a lot of issues on the line and stuff. That makes a
yeah.
lot of sense. Yeah.
And Drake May's been sacked 28 times. So he's 74.2 plus EPA this year. He's got 15 touchdowns, over 2,000 yards passing. He's doing a lot of this with his own, and he's got nearly 9 yards per attempt. So he's throwing the ball
Yeah.
down the field, adding a ton of EPA, making the right decisions, and also checking it down when he needs to. So, like, I think Drake May is taking that step to becoming one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the NFL, and we're going to find out, obviously, over the course of the next season and then what he does next year, how the Patriots play out. But this is a team that it all makes sense, like from the offensive line, which is playing a little bit better. Obviously, we take we don't want to just kind of ignore Myles Garrett getting 5 sacks in a game
Yes.
against the
Yes.
Patriots.
Monster.
That's insane for
He's a
anybody.
monster. Yeah.
But Drake May won that game while getting sacked 5 times by Myles Garrett. Like, that's an impressive thing to
Won it
have
by
happen.
19 points. I mean, it
Yeah,
was a blowout. Yeah, completely agreed. I think all anybody has to do is watch the game-winning drive that May authored against the Bills, where, he was pulling Mahomesian passes out of that one. That one
yeah,
was crazy. And, as far as his help around him on offense, I mean, you've got Stephon Diggs kind of in the twilight of his career. He certainly hasn't been the Diggs that was the alpha dog. Kayshon Bootie's been a good player, fine. And, they've got guys like Hunter Henry. I mean, they've got, Ramondre Stevenson. They have guys, but they're not.
competence. It's just
Yes.
competence.
Yes,
It's a competent
yes.
group.
Right, exactly right. And so he's doing a lot with not a lot of help, I would say. And he's really impressive. And, I felt like the Chiefs had kind of, from our perspective, dealt with all these superstar quarterbacks coming back to the
Mhm.
AFC, and it had kind of washed away a little bit. And like, you feel like you could breathe, and they're not all coming right for you. And then all of a sudden you look, and it's like, God damn, Drake May, like he's
Yeah.
just another one of these dudes that got drafted to a team in the AFC and is now just absolutely killing it. And I think he's going to be a problem for a while. And I that's annoying that it's the Patriots. Of course, they took a really long break, took a really long
Yeah.
4 or 5 year season without being completely good at quarterbacks. So that's annoying. But yeah, Patriots. 7 out of 10 confidence in them taking the AFC East. That's about right, and that's as much about them, I feel like, as it is about the vulnerability of the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are still a good team, but they're
Yeah.
certainly not this like juggernaut that we've seen the last couple of years. We'll talk about them. Obviously, it's Bills week. 3 seed. The Broncos, the Denver Broncos, are 6-2. They beat the Cowboys this week, 44-24. A lot of blowouts by AFC contenders this week, which was very annoying. Bo Nix has been hot and cold, really cold for a while. Kind of turns it on in the fourth quarter a lot. They were a miracle comeback last week from losing to the New York Giants, losing pretty bad, but then they pulled out a 33-point fourth quarter, just an absolute miracle. And then they dropped the hammer this week on the Cowboys with a 44 spot in Denver. Their defense is nasty, but they did just lose Pat Surtain on the IR, and their lines on both sides of the ball, they're playing about as well as anybody. They typically grade out excellently, if not number one in football in pass block win rate and all the offensive line metrics, and their defense can really get after it. Can they? I mean, I know they can. Anyone can do anything, but confidence in them holding off the Chiefs and Chargers and actually winning the AFC West, or are they playing maybe a little bit above their weight right now? And how confident are you in the 6-2 Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I think they're punching just a little bit above their weight.
Just
I
a
still
bit.
think they're around a 7 or 6 seed in the AFC West. Still a good team, obviously led by the defense. Bo Nix is regressed.
Mhm.
Actually, sorry, he has not regressed. He's playing the exact same football
Yeah,
that he played last year. But
his
teams are like,
reputation
oh,
has
we
regressed.
know what you're gonna do, right? We know
Uh-huh.
what you're gonna do, and that's the thing is that you know I don't condone what Sean Payton did in drafting him as high as he did. I
Mhm.
understand why because he thought he can work with that skill set, and he's done a good job with it. But where are you afraid of this offense? Who are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of
Right.
anybody. Not even
Right.
Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
I am, and the
Good player, but
Broncos play the Chiefs tough every year.
mhm.
They do. Even Bo Nix does. He did last
Mhm.
year. Like I give them their credit for that. But if we look from everywhere else, it's just kind of that paper tiger feel. Like I think they're going to be a
Yeah.
good team if you if their offense gets hot going into the postseason, okay, we'll have a different story. And you guys don't read too much into a 40 spot against the Dallas Cowboys in
Sure.
Denver.
Who
Really
doesn't
don't
do
read too
that?
much into it. Like
Yeah.
it was if they didn't score like 35 plus in that game, I think we would have had more questions off
Agreed.
of what happened. 2 weeks in a row. So it's I'm still very confident in the Chiefs' chances to win the AFC West. We've seen what's happened with the Chargers, the Broncos. It sucks to lose Pat Surtain, but I think they have more than enough to make up for it defensively. But I'm not afraid of the offense.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. They're feisty. They're a team that's going to be hanging around, probably a playoff team. I'd be pretty surprised, like you said, 6 or 7. I'd be surprised at this point if they weren't one of the 7 AFC, spots. But they just, they again, like a lot of these teams, like they really haven't been challenged too much on their schedule either. And um, we'll see kind of how this team holds together over the course of the season. But 6-2 is a fine start. They put themselves in a good position in these first couple weeks to take care of business. So the 4 seed, the last division leading team, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost. Hey, an AFC contender actually lost a football game. That's a shock. They lost the Packers this week, 35-25. The Steelers are 4-3. And a few months ago, if you had told me that after 7 games, the Steelers were 4-3, I would have probably said that's because Aaron Rodgers is washed and the defense is carrying him, a classic Mike Tomlin situation. But it's been kind of the opposite of that. The defense is bad. Rodgers has found a little bit of his pre-Jets form. I wouldn't say he's fully back to the back-to-back MVPs, but he's got 16 touchdowns, 5 picks, 104 passer rating, doing all the stuff that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers fans could have reasonably expected out of him. The division race, the AFC North, is very interesting for a lot of reasons, but most of those reasons don't really have to do with the Steelers. They really have to do with the 2 teams that they're holding off, the Burrowless Bengals and whatever the hell has happened to the Ravens. But Lamar's coming back this week. Flacco's playing fine for the most part for the Bengals. Do you see the Steelers being able to hold on for dear life in this AFC North race and cling to the 4 seed? Do they feel more like a wild card team to you, and one of those 2 teams behind them is going to get hot? How do you see the AFC North kind of shaping out?
I have no idea
Right.
about the AFC. I literally have no clue what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that Aaron Rodgers is playing well, but he is not getting pressured at all. 55 pressures on the year. 55.
55.
That's it.
Jeez.
That is it. So it's not just because the offensive line's playing exceptionally well either, because it's not. He gets the ball out super quick. It is. We are back to the drop, or top of our drop, and the ball's coming out. So this
classic
is
veteran move there, right? He knows the offense, knows what he's going to do. Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly. He's done a really good job with that. Obviously, they're also playing a lot of 13 and 12 personnel, a lot more tight ends on the field. He's getting a little bit more max protect, I would imagine, as well, because even though he is doing a better job of using his athleticism at 40 years old, which I'm with you. If you would have told me that Aaron Rodgers was doing some of this boot action stuff in Pittsburgh, I would not believed you. But he's looked pretty good. However, I think that this offense is also built on paper and straw and gum and duct tape. Like, it just feels like none of this is going to hold up the rest of the season. As good as Aaron Rodgers is playing, DK Metcalf is just fine. He hasn't been like a star. I feel like he's been George Pickens-esque, which is who they traded.
Funny. Yeah.
Away. Without the crazy stuff that he's done. But overall, this offensive line, it's hit and miss. Their run game is okay. And I just feel like as the season goes along, 55 pressures is just not going to happen. And their defense is legitimate garbage. Like, you can do whatever you want to that defense, and specifically throw on it. Like, it's just, it's not good. So if I had to guess right now, I'd say the Ravens win the division. But then again, their defense is also cooked. So,
but they've got Lamar and Derrick Henry, and that's always a good good way to fall back on. I'm with you. I do think that if free $1 million bet right now on who wins the AFC North, I think the Ravens figure it out, and I think that the Steelers are very gettable, and I just don't know if the Bengals are going to be able to get Burrow back in time to make enough noise. I think they're very pedestrian without Joe Burrow, and I could
Flacco's might not going to play this week.
Right. Flacco's hurt. He hurt his shoulder. Again, he's been a gamer. He's been out there trying his best, but you just feel like Flacco's been, one hit away from never playing football again. And it's a very weird and interesting race. And it's 3 teams that all have a ton of holes and probably, I would imagine, will be playoff underdogs at home against the 5 seed, which whoever comes out of the North, I just think that
Agreed.
they're, it's a struggle right now. So let's get to the 5 seed. We don't have to spend a ton of time on the Buffalo
Yeah.
Bills. They beat the Panthers 40-9. We're obviously going to get to the preview later on, talk about how they match up with the Chiefs and all that stuff. You already kind of mentioned that you feel like the Patriots are in pretty good shape to take them for the AFC East. So let's just keep it moving and we'll go to the 6 seed. And that is the Los Angeles Chargers, who on Thursday night last week demolished the Vikings 37-10. They looked a lot better now that Joe Alt is back in at left tackle. They've worked tight end Rondé Gadsden really well into their offense over the last few weeks. He's looked like an animal out there. Early on, middle of the beginning of the year, they lost back-to-back games to the Giants and Commanders. They've bounced back since then, won 2 out of their last 3. The Chargers they're led by a winning coach, and they've got a lot of recipe for success. They've got a quarterback with a rocket arm. They've got a good defense. Is the 5 or 6 seed like that, like a wild card problem? Is the AFC West in play for the Chargers? Let's start there. Like, do you feel like if the Chiefs are going to hold off one team to win the AFC West, do you feel like it's more likely to be the Chargers or the Broncos?
I mean, right now the Chargers have the inside track. They already have the win
Head to head,
against the Chiefs. So
yeah,
like, if
and a
we're
head to head against the Broncos. They swept the
exactly,
AFC West as their first 3 games. So yeah, that is
yeah.
fair.
So right now, I think that the Chargers still have kind of that inside track against most of the AFC West. It's going to come down to if they continue to charger. Like, and that's
Right,
it's a whole fair
right.
thing because regardless of if Jim Harbaugh being there, their injuries, the offensive line, even with Joe Alt back, it's not good anywhere else. Like, it's
No,
not just an offensive line is going to solve itself. And we talked about it earlier. Justin Herbert has been pressured 148 times. That is
jeez,
far and away the
that's
most in
crazy.
the NFL. The
Yeah.
next closest is 110, which is no, it's Baker Mayfield, excuse me. And that's a lot more on Baker Mayfield than it is the offensive line.
Say that again. The gap between Herbert and Baker is how big?
Sorry, it's actually Cam Ward with 124, but it's
Oh,
still
sure.
24
That's
total
crazy.
pressures.
That's a
So yeah,
ton.
it's a ridiculous thing. And I'm still not sold on the Chargers defense.
Yeah,
It's kind of like up and down. I feel like I like Jesse Minter. Jesse Minter is a really good defensive coach, and he does a lot with scheme. Like, we've heard Patrick Mahomes praise Jesse Minter. His scheme is very,
yeah.
very good. I think he's just getting to the end of that lime or that lemon where he's just squeezing out as much as he possibly can of the talent there.
Yeah,
They're still a few years away from being in a point where I think their defensive talent can match up with the scheme. But you've got some aging stars there: Khalil Mack, DJ, Derwin James. They have some young players as well. But overall, it just feels like a defense that is playing again above its caliber, and maybe they play that right the way the rest of the year. But I do
sure.
think the Chargers, if their offensive line can get it together, especially with the emergence, like I said, of Gadsden, you've got McConkey, and now apparently Quentin Johnston doesn't exist anymore.
Right. That's crazy. He wasn't
Keenan
even
Allen's
targeted
back.
this week.
No,
Like, not only did he
so
not catch it, normally his problem used to be that he couldn't catch the ball. Now
and
it's that
now
he can't even get targeted from Justin Herbert. It's crazy.
it's a ridiculous thing. But overall, I do think that the Chargers still have a very good shot at winning the AFC West, but
Sure.
I still picture them as more of a wild card team.
I agree with you completely. And I do think that whatever of the top seeds are going to see the Chargers, if they are a wild card team in the first round of the playoffs, is not going to be super happy about that matchup. I think
Yeah.
they're annoying and dangerous and all that stuff. And then we have the current 7 seed, of course, Kansas City Chiefs. And so let's get into that game. Let's talk about Chiefs 28, Commanders 7. Now, typically on the show with Austin and I, we do the Chiefs system where we go through all the very boilerplate way that the Chiefs have won football games. It's been very predictable, and then these last couple wins, really all 5 wins this year, have been by double digits and have made us throw the Chiefs system out the window because they no longer are scraping by and winning these 1-score games by the skin of their teeth. And so last week with the Raiders shutout, we came up with a brand new Chiefs system that kind of represented a wire to wire ass kicking that one was. That's not really what this game was either. So I decided this week I'm going to throw the Chiefs system out entirely. I'm not going to do the new one. I'm not going to do the old one. We're just going to talk about the game. We're going to let the game script kind of dictate our discussion. And so we start Washington came into this game with quarterback Jaden Daniels, of course, nursing a hamstring and was injured, but they were getting some of their other pieces back. Wide receivers, both Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, had missed some time, and we're coming back in this one. Of course, we all remember, unfortunately, what Marcus Mariota was able to do in Arrowhead in the 2017 playoffs. So I don't think anybody was necessarily taking him lightly, even though he's a backup quarterback. Probably the most capable backup quarterback in the league. Certainly right up there in the conversation. Has been playing pretty well. This is his third game of the year out of the 8 in place of Jaden Daniels, because Jaden's been working on some injuries. So the Chiefs did come into this double-digit favorites according to Vegas, and that can sometimes make Chiefs fans rightfully a little nervous. You get a little, overconfident in that one. And early on in this one, there was all the indications that this game could go sideways for the Chiefs. The Commanders drove the field on their opening possession. Deebo just took one right in the face mask, popped it up. Mike Dana came down with the first interception of his life. He said that he never got one in college. He never got one at any level of football before, so he was pretty fired up for that one. Love that for the big guy. And then the Chiefs marched the other way for, looked good, looked fine on offense, but then Pat threw a back shoulder ball to Hollywood. Marshawn Lattimore played it better, basically ran the route for Hollywood, snatched it. Lattimore's been struggling this year. Who it was Mahomes was only his third interception of the season on that pass. So it's not like Pat's been giving the ball away. What did you think about that? Those two early possessions to open up Monday Night Football, both with interceptions, both kind of, offenses move the ball in both cases, but then they didn't come away with points.
Honestly, I thought, it's weird. It's weird to see that kind of thing happen in two situations. However, Pat's was bad. It was bad. I don't understand throwing that to Hollywood Brown. If we're doing a fade route on third down, why is Hollywood Brown the guy? Give me Tyquan Thornton. Give me Juju Smith-Schuster. Give me Xavier Worthy. Give me Rashee Rice. Give me Travis Kelce.
Anybody on the roster.
Any of them, except for Hollywood Brown. That's never been his game. He is not, and he didn't throw it well. He didn't locate it outside so that he can actually make an adjustment on the throw. So overall, I thought that it was a poor decision and a poor idea. One, as we've heard Patrick talk about, they don't throw a lot of them. So one, there's not enough practice. They probably don't even do it in practice. It's more of a feel thing, unless it's a red zone drill. So
yeah,
I didn't like that specific one. I've been asking for more contested guys to be able to, make those plays. But the last guy I'm thinking in that situation is Hollywood Brown. So
and Marshawn Lattimore, I mean, that's not a great matchup for Hollywood on that type of route.
I
didn't like it. Yeah.
A physical player who plays well in man coverage against a guy who is not good in physical man coverage. Like just all around a bad decision and a bad execution.
Yep. And then the defense, they come up with another stop on that weird virtual measurement that I'm still not used to. And in fact, that might be the first time I've ever seen it. I don't really remember the last time. I mean, I know this year's the first time they've done it, but I don't remember a virtual measurement in any other Chiefs game this year. Or do you remember one off the top of your head? I feel like they haven't used it, right? Yeah.
I haven't seen it since the preseason.
Right. Yes, exactly. So Zach Ertz was apparently exactly 5 inches short of the line to gain on 4th and 6 from the Kansas City 40. I did think that was the right call, just kind of from a football perspective from Dan Quinn. Yeah. Matt Gay, their kicker, was hurt. And even though they did have Chiefs legend Matthew Wright on the sidelines, who authored the longest kick in Arrowhead history that lasted exactly 1 week before Butker broke it the next week, they opted to stay aggressive. Dan Quinn said in the halftime interview, we're going to be aggressive. And that makes sense, especially in a game where you're a double-digit dog and you've got a backup quarterback. Like, let's roll the dice. Let's see what happens. But they were short, and so the Chiefs took over. But after only 6 plays and 17 yards, they did something that had not been done in the Mahomes era before. They began a game with back-to-back interceptions. This one, of course, not Pat's fault at all. It was 3rd and 4, right to Kelce, right to his hands. It happens, pops up. It's the second time it's happened to Kelce of Pat's 4 interceptions this year. So, he probably owes him a 1587 meal or something, because that was just popped right into waiting hands of future Hall of Famer Bobby Wagner. So 4 possessions into this game, no punts, no points. Pretty weird start to the game for the way that the offense has been, moving and clicking, and just kind of the way that this season has gone. I just didn't really see the 2 interceptions to start a game off, but then certainly with a interception and a fourth down stop by the defense. Just a very clunky and fits and starts start to this game.
Yeah, this is one of those. It felt like it was going to be a weird Chiefs game, right? Like just where,
Yeah. Shout out to
the
only
Commanders,
weird games.
right? The Commanders came out with more energy initially. Like it felt
Yeah.
like they wanted to play a little bit more physically than the Chiefs and play a little bit more up tempo. Caught the Chiefs off guard a little bit, I think, but that's how you have to be prepared for this kind of stuff in the NFL. The talent gap is not so much, even with the backup quarterback
Uh-huh.
and guys that are hurt, that you can kind of not come into a game starting fast. Like we've seen the Chiefs do this earlier in the season. They did it in week one. They got blown off the field by the Chargers for the most part because they didn't show up to the game.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, you can't score points. And then on top of it, when execution goes out the window, you're throwing back shoulder throat fades to Marquise Hollywood Brown. Travis Kelce is dropping another pass that gets deflected into somebody else's hands.
Mhm.
It's just it's not spelling good things. So the first half was very weird. It was very, very weird and not fun to watch
Very
with those
weird.
turnovers.
And of course, there's one more possession in here by Washington. Washington comes back, gets the ball down to the Kansas City 28. They have 4th and 1. I thought this was where things really unraveled for them.
Yeah.
This is, well within the kicker's range. You're at the 28. It's 4th and 1. You could also run the ball here. You could do some tricky Mariota. He had been playing really sharp, looked pretty confident and comfortable. But instead, Spags dials up a perfectly timed blitz when's drink every time that happens. And all Mariota could do was just kind of heave it down the left sideline out of play. Didn't really give anybody a chance. It was just a panic throwaway. And, so once again, the Commanders in 3 trips come up empty 3 times, and neither time was with a punt or field goal attempt. They had a pick and 2 fourth down stops. Just, I thought, for as aggressive and as I understand the mentality, but I just thought that was poor drive management there. It was 0-0. You're in Chiefs territory. Just kick the field goal, man. I'm all for, or run the ball. Like do anything other than just having Mariota not have a plan on a pass. So, of course, you knew the Chiefs would figure things out after that stop. I figured eventually they would. Here comes a 9-play, 72-yard touchdown drive. Ends on Kareem Hunt pounding it in from the 1, 7-0 Chiefs late in the first half. What'd you think about that sequence there by Washington, and then the answer by the Chiefs?
Honestly, I don't mind going for it on 4th down, but do a QB read option.
Yeah, do something that will work.
That's what you should do. Like that's what you should do. You shouldn't be throwing the ball on 4th and 1, 4th and 5 or whatever you had earlier. Fine,
Agreed.
Makes sense. But
Agreed.
4th and 1, give yourself 2 options. And Mariota's a good running quarterback. You've got the ability to get a yard. Just do something a little bit different. That's all I probably would have done. Again, no issues going with it on 4th down.
No,
and then you knew,
neither.
like you said, you knew that once that happened, the juice was going to come back to the offense, and that's exactly what happened. And then once Patrick gets going, the second and third reaction throws were flowing, dude. He was on fire the rest of the game. So that was the drive that they said, all right, defense picked us up there. We are going to go and pick them up now. And I think that was really what you saw. Just kind of picking up with the left off, throwing the ball out everywhere, taking advantage of the zone that the Commanders were playing. And you heard, obviously, Troy Aikman talk about it 7,000 times about, you just can't play zone against this team.
Yeah.
Like you can't
really play man either. It's tough. It's tough. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. It was always going to be a tough defensive matchup for Washington, but obviously coming up with 2 picks in your first 2 drives, they had to have been feeling pretty good. And then the Chiefs just went down and just punched it right down their throats. The extended plays, at the end of this game, Mahomes would finish, I don't have the numbers in front of me anymore, but it was something like 9 of 11 for 150 yards and all 3 touchdowns or something. I mean, he was basically perfect on extended 4-second plus plays in this one. And so after they punched this one in on the ground, the last highlight of the night really for Washington came on their next drive, right before halftime. An absurd Terry McLaurin toe-tapping touchdown on 3rd and 10 from the 11, where Mariota saw him streaking and kind of threw a duck. Pretty tough ball to chase down, and it was called obviously incomplete at first on the field. But I was told that the refs call everything in the Chiefs' favor, so I was a little curious why they reviewed this and gave the touchdown to the Chiefs' opponent. That was not my agreement. When I sent my Venmo payments in, it was please call everything for the Chiefs. I'm I'm very confused by this situation. I've been told that every call goes against Kansas City. No, but I was really impressed by Marcus Mariota's performance up until this point in the first half. They had the 3 empty trips, but really, not a ton of that was on him. There was, obviously a pick that was just right to Debo that was popped up. Some questionable, especially that last 4th down play call, but and the Ertz play very easily could have been a first down that they failed on 4th down. I mean, now he basically was executing the offense in a way that if you're got a backup quarterback in there, you feel pretty good about. The it was knotted up at 7-all going into the break. Washington was right in it. They were right there. All they had to do was stop the Chiefs from coming out in the second half and just scoring constant touchdowns. But that's how NFL games go. They couldn't keep it up for the full game. We're going to fast forward through the second half. It was not very. I mean, it was fun for Chiefs fans. Obviously, it goes from a close game to a 28-7 blowout. The Chiefs showed up in the second half, scoring touchdowns on their first 3 possessions. And Washington had 4 drives in the second half, and they went 25 yards, 17 yards, 1 yard, all punts, and 23 yards in a game-sealing pick when things were already obviously well in hand. The Chiefs have not punted in the last 3 weeks up by any fewer than 10 points. So obviously they scored their first 5 possessions against the Raiders and didn't punt until that game was well out of hand. And even that Lions game, they executed really well and didn't end up punting until late. And then this one, same thing. The first half this one involved a little bit more turnovers from the Chiefs, but again, they turned it on in the second half. Mahomes was dealing. You mentioned it. He threw touchdowns to Kelsey, Rice, and Hunt here, all on plays over 4 seconds of play time. Defense was dialed in. They pitched a shutout in the second half. Anything particular about that second half run that stood out to you about the performance, or any thoughts on what went down?
Really just about what this team is capable of. And
Yeah,
they're fully healthy with the weapons. And we talked a little bit about earlier about zone versus man. You can't play zone against this team. Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice are too good. Patrick Mahomes is too good. Even if you zone blitz, like he knows where to go with the football. So, and that's another thing that Rashee Rice is showing, not just I'm going to sit down here in this zone, but if you don't find me, I'm going right to where space is. So
yeah, he learned that from the GOAT, from Trav. I mean, it looks
exactly.
like he knows exactly how to play backyard ball with him. It's great.
And that's the whole point. Like the whole thing last year before the injury was this is Travis Kelce now. Rashee Rice is Travis Kelce, because that's what you need. You need that guy that reads the same way that Patrick does to be able to showcase this type of feel with the offense. And then if you go to man coverage, Andy Reid says, okay, we're going to just stretch you vertically and horizontally. We're going to run crossers.
Yeah.
We're going to do all this other stuff. And it's not so much about guys that can't create against man coverage, because I think that from time to time, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, and Xavier Worthy to an extent. Juju Schuster won't always get open, but I also don't always feel like the routes are helping them in that regard. But Andy Reid turns a scheme when he knows you're playing more man. He will dial up the crossers. He will get the vertical shots going because he knows how to do that. So it's really exciting to watch what the Chiefs are doing and see how they can adapt their offensive game plan every week, and then even in game like they did against the Commanders to come out and just do what they just did.
And not to mention the Chiefs have one of the ultimate man coverage beaters in NFL history, which is Patrick Mahomes' legs. I mean, if you've got your back turned and you're trying to cover a guy, he's going to crush you. He's just going to he's going to run every single time for at least a first down, if not a lot more. So, they've got all the answers right now, and they won't always. I think took it for granted in Chiefs Kingdom that they were always going to have all the answers on offense because for several years they did. And then, some stuff dried up, some guys, got hurt or left or whatever, and it became a little bit harder. So now that the offense is back to kind of being on their game and doing whatever they want to do, boy, it's a breath of fresh air. That's for sure. Okay. That wraps up the recap. Now let's get to our awards. We have 3 types of awards on this show. We have our 5-star men, who through their play scream out, "I'm a 5-star man." We have the trash men.
I'm the trash man. I come out I throw trash all over the ring, and then I start eating garbage.
Who, through their play, are eating garbage all over the field. And then, of course, we have the wild cards.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
Who are capable of anything. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes you just don't know. Wild cards are they're wild. So we'll get right into it. I'll start out with my 5-star man of this game, and I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. He had 2 touchdowns. His short yardage guaranteed success rate is just such a it's such a relief for an offense that for a couple of years, even when the offense was performing really well, it was pretty unreliable in short yardage situations. There were a lot of 3rd and 4th and 1s throughout the Mahomes era where whether it was Andy getting too cute and trying some weird stuff or whatever it was, they just didn't have a back that was capable of going and getting him a tough yard. They just, that wasn't on the roster. And now that he is, and it's old man Kareem Hunt with his old man strength, it's been a delight. And this one, it wasn't just the short yardage stuff. He had 9 carries for 40 yards, so 4.4 average there. Along of 11, it's great to see Kareem Hunt even rip off a double-digit run these days.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he was playing a little backyard ball on a 4th down, 4th and goal from the 2, and caught a touchdown from Mahomes. That's Kareem's first receiving touchdown of the season. I just really like the energy and the story that Kareem Hunt brings to this team. I think a redemption story is always really fun and interesting. And, he's easy to root for these days. So he is my 5-star man from this game.
Absolutely. And he's kind of almost by himself solved the Chiefs' short yardage and
Right?
red zone issues.
Yes.
He has been the goal line back inside the red zone.
Great point.
We've seen this team struggle for years, like you said, with the short yardage, and then in the red zone having to set up for field goals instead. Andy Reid said, no, we're going to go for it more on 4th down, but also Kareem Hunt has helped so much. So I love that you called him out, especially because he's been such a big part of scoring and converting, keeping those drives going. For me, on the opposite side, I'm going to go.
I want to real quick before you name your 5-star man. You got me thinking about a point that I wanted to make, that I wanted to talk about, that we haven't talked about. That's been a revelation for the Chiefs offense, and I didn't fit it anywhere into the recap. But it's Andy Reid on 4th down, dude.
Yeah.
He is 14 for 17 so far this season and has not attempted more than 14 4th downs or converted more than 14 4th downs in any Patrick Mahomes season so far, in a full season, including playoffs. So 20 games, he's never done that. And he just jammed that all into 8 games. I just feel like if you give Patrick Mahomes an extra down, like he's already extremely efficient in converting 1st downs, even when they weren't going for very many fourths. The Chiefs were still one of the best teams in the NFL at converting drives into 1st downs. Now you give them fourths too. I love that from Andy. I love that he's able to kind of, change with the times a little bit. There's a great chart. I think it's probably a Ben Baldwin chart, I believe, on aggressiveness of coaches on 4th down by the book. How when they go for it when they're supposed to, and when they go for it when it's maybe a toss up. And Andy's in the top right, man. He's doing it not only when he should, but even when it's a little questionable on your own side of the field. I just love that for the Chiefs and for the offense. Now, please, your 5-star man from this game.
Absolutely. And just really quickly, Andy Reid finally going for it on 4th down more, even though he's been kind of an aggressive minded head coach for the most part in terms of 4th down. Mm-hmm. This is what we've been asking for, because if you play like the Eagles do on offense, where they're just trying to get to 4th and short or 4th and 2.
Yeah.
You give Patrick Mahomes a 4th and 2. Okay. I mean, like I said, we're cooking with gas now. Like there's so many, and there's endless possibilities, but it's a lot of fun to see what's happening with the 4th down stuff and Andy Reid taking more of that and taking some coaching from everybody else in the league that's doing it more. So I appreciate that a lot. Defensive side, guys. George Karlaftis maybe had his best game of the season, even though it didn't all show up in the stat sheet. He was everywhere. And not only are we talking about a 5-star player here, I did an entire film review on RGR Football. You can go check it out right now. He's still a frustrating player to watch as a pass rusher. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong.
You can tell when you're talking about him. It's like, I love him. I hate him. It's great.
We all love what he brings in terms of the effort, the physicality, the run defense, being one of those soft-spoken, speak with your play kind of players. It works for him. And this game, you saw the mental part, why he was re-signed, because he's a smart football player, and that comes through in his pass rush more than I think him just purely winning, but being able to set things up properly. We talk about rush lane integrity a lot and how that helped the Chargers beat the Chiefs in that third down situation early on in the season. But you see him actually activate that against Marcus Mariota, and I showed the clip there. It's on Twitter. You guys can go see it. So there's a lot of fun, nuanced stuff to this film breakdown for George Karlaftis that I really did appreciate. We talked a little bit about his limitations as a pass rusher and why it's so frustrating. But in this game, you felt him on every down against
Yeah.
the run, against the pass, first, second, third down. It didn't matter. He was all over it. So he was my guy for this game.
Yes, completely agreed. And obviously, yeah, if you guys are listening and haven't gone checked out Dan RGR, go do it right now. Pause the pod. You can come back to it. Go watch that breakdown. It's good stuff. And George is he's one of those players that he's a net positive for sure. And even
Yeah.
though you can see his limitations and you can see some stuff where, yeah, the elites of the elites on the edge do some stuff better than he does. He's been getting results and he's been a great part of the defense and I'm tickled that it's working out as well as it has. Obviously, with the pick initially in the first round, there were some doubts about the viability of George Karlaftis in the NFL, and he's on his second contract. He's proven it wrong. So, shout out to Big George. Let's go to the trash man. And my trash man for this game, um, you know, Dave Tobe, he drives me nuts, man. He drives me nuts, and I know that he's been around forever, and I know that he's a legendary special teams coach, and he's a big part of the success of the Chiefs. And there have been times where the Chiefs special teams have been, A grade. They've been very good. But it feels like those times have not been recently for a long time because this team just cannot stop shooting themselves in the foot on special teams, whether it's Jack Cochran holds, or whether it's other players that hold on kick and punt returns, or whether it's the kicking game in general, like the kickoff game. I don't feel like Harrison Butker is doing the kickoff as well as other teams around the league. I feel like the starting field position for other teams on these kickoffs is exorbitantly higher than average in the NFL. I should have looked it up, but that's my feeling. And Tobe's got to get these guys together, man. He's got to get them to play with some intelligence and to quit holding on. I mean, they had, I believe it was 4 straight returns against the Commanders with a hold. It was at least 2. It felt like 4. Just a bad showing by Uncle Dave.
Yeah, and this is coming off of what was it, 2 weeks ago where they had those penalties, or was it?
Yes,
No, that was the
or
Jags. That was the
the
Jags game.
Jags game. The Jags game.
Oh,
Yep.
oh.
Yes, at late in the game where they needed every yard, and they just couldn't get out of their own way. They just couldn't do it. It drives me nuts.
At some point, you got to cut a man loose. I don't care
Which
that
man?
Jack Cochran
Yeah,
got a pick
okay.
in this game. I don't
Yeah.
care that he got a pick. He is a weak link on special
Mhm.
teams for a guy who was supposed to be one of your most impactful special teams players. And you can't have the brain. You can't continue to have these situations with guys. I don't care how much you like them. You have to make decisions based on performance, and
Yeah.
he's not performing well. If you're having holding penalties every other game or multiple times a game,
Oh,
something's not working. So I'm with you there, and I'd probably just single out Jack Cochran myself because I still think Dave Tobe is a net positive as well.
okay. Okay.
However,
Yeah.
we have our semantics, and I got no problem calling out Dave Tobe either because
Sure.
he's partially to blame for not calling out his players either. For me, I'm gonna go to half of a player, and it's Nick Bolton in coverage because
I love that.
Nick Bolton is still a fantastic run defender. He reads the plays very well. He undercuts blocks, but that guy cannot save himself in coverage.
No.
He can't save that little flat route to the running back.
Brutal.
There was a blitz. It was man coverage. He just didn't go cover him.
Yeah.
He was busy looking at the quarterback. He just didn't go cover him. They have tight end leak multiple times in this game from the
Yes.
Commanders. That they got big plays that he's just not paying attention to. I understand that basically he's like mugged up to the line of scrimmage and his attention is on the quarterback. But you have to know where your responsibility is if you're in man coverage. You have to be able
Yeah.
to see these players. So
You know
I
who
am
led Washington in receiving this week? It was Jeremy McNichols, five
Jeremy
catches for
McNichols, yeah.
64 yards. I mean, they absolutely knew if 32 is out there in coverage on a line, I mean, on a running back, let's do that every time. And it works.
And this is the problem. I think that this is one of those games where I do think that the Chiefs showed a little bit too much of their weakness.
Mm.
And the middle of the field specifically, and then the flats when running backs are manned up against linebackers, it's not a good situation to find themselves in because they don't have anybody that can really stop that. So that's
No.
something I am concerned about. But I mean, as much as I can say trash man, that's why we're going at attacking half of a player here with Nick Bolton in coverage, but it's been the same thing forever. And as smart as he is, apparently, according to everybody, and that's good
Yep.
for them. And Steve Spagnuolo, who loves him for that, he can't seem to figure it out in coverage, and then he's just not very good there.
No, no. And he's obviously not fast enough. Like, even if he knew, damn it, I knew I was supposed to be over there and covering that running back. He just can't get there. He doesn't have the
No,
athletic ability. It's maddening. Obviously they extended Nick. They think very highly of him. He runs the defense. There's a lot of things that he does very well. And the coaches will tell you that all day, every day. But boy, he's a liability in coverage. He's absolutely a liability. And, fortunately it hasn't, I mean, it comes up in the games, but I haven't seen a team that just says we're just going to target him every single play. Like Peyton Manning used to do. Peyton Manning used to
yeah,
find if you had a guy that wasn't up to snuff, he was like, I'm going to throw him at him until you pull him out of the game and put somebody else in there. And fortunately, they haven't faced anybody that's decided to do that to Nick. But that's a great pick for the trash man, just specifically Nick Bolton in coverage, because obviously the other things he does, including stuff in the run, he's a dog out there. Wild cards now. And these are players that are a little up, a little down, kind of surprising or capable of anything. And for me, obviously our guy Travis Kelce had a great game. And
yeah.
he had 6 catches for 99 yards. The 38-yarder around the right side, down the right side was just hilarious. And it was a total, like, if that was old Trav, he would have walked into the end zone untouched. But as it was, he did a good job stretching 38 yards out of that thing before they caught him down. And I didn't really, if you had asked me if 35 plus year old Travis Kelce would ever have another catch of 38 yards that was all yak, I would have said no. But he did. He pulled it off. He's got to keep that focus. And the 2 of the 4 Mahomes interceptions this year hit him right in the hands, and they popped up, and the defense was able to get after those. This one was on a 3rd down conversion that was just a ball that I'm sure he's caught a billion times in his life before, but he didn't catch this one. That's enough to make him a wild card for me, because there really, there weren't a ton of guys that even really had down performances in this one. It's a 3 touchdown win. It was a good performance all around by the team, but give me Travis Kelce as my wild card.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to say. And honestly, on the big play, that only happens because the Chiefs can threaten defenses down the field.
Yeah,
And obviously
totally.
he's smart enough to say, hey, there's nobody over here. I don't need to worry about someone blocking. Hey, Patrick, I'm wide open. There is
Give me
not a
that thing.
soul near me. Come throw
Mhm.
me the football. I'm not going to drop this one. So like that's what you need him for. You need him to find those spaces like that. And
That was
if
quite a
he
soft
wouldn't have
spot, wasn't it?
if he wouldn't have tripped trying to juke out
Yes.
that player, I think he would have scored, but he absolutely had to catch
I think he
himself
ran out of
because
gas. I think that little juke move was him being like, I'm going down regardless of what's happening right here. So yeah, but yes, he made it happen there. That was an electric 38-yard play.
absolutely was. And everything in terms of that needs to happen. And one of the ways you get there, right? We talk about Travis Kelce on that play. He's holding up in pass protection. Sometimes you're going to have some things hold up in pass protection. Sometimes they're not. My wild cards are the backup linemen in this game because I think Jalen Moore had a good couple of first games as a backup left tackle. He got exposed a little bit with some of my concerns with the soft edge specifically. And you saw Jacob Martin, which can't remember exactly which guy, but
Jacob Martin, 55. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was all over it.
he was eating his lunch a couple of times and getting to that edge, and that's one of those things where you can attack a guy who wants to be like Jalen Moore, who's not necessarily the most athletic guy in the world, like a Joshua Simmons, but you can make him think you're going to attack him head on, and that's what gives up that soft shoulder, right, where he kind of stays in his in his stance, and then he just opens a little bit. When you open your shoulders to the sideline and you're not all the way extended out, getting
Mhm.
back into your drop, you give up that inside for guys that are a little bit quicker. They're a little bit more athletic. So, and they can bring speed to power. So he started off the game with a pretty awful loss. A couple more in this
Yes.
game, but he did bounce back. Again, he and Mike Caliendo both. I think Johnny Newton had a couple of big moments against Mike Caliendo. That obviously that last sack that ended up helping out the Chiefs because they got the penalty because he threw the guy on the
Yeah.
ground.
Yep.
Caliendo just gets beat easily to the outside. It's just a stutter step inside, a little bit maybe a Euro step. You step inside, outside, and he's just clear wins. So Mike Caliendo, the guy who also came in last season, had a good first game in the postseason and then proceeded to be awful after
Yeah.
that. So I think we've tempered down the awful after, and he was able to, bounce back. They had a couple of really good run plays with all of those guys as well. So that's why we got wild cards here with those guys because they did have some good moments, I think, in this game to help the Chiefs course correct and get their offense back on track. But it was also part of the reason that Patrick was under pressure and they couldn't really get going early on.
Sure, completely agreed. Sometimes the wild cards are about not really knowing what to expect from play to play, and that's kind of the story with those
Yeah.
guys. It was like, they show flashes and they show reasons that, like Andy said before the game that week, that like we consider Mike to be a starting caliber guard in the NFL. He just happens to be behind, obviously Trey Smith, and that's fine, but he had some L's in there, and Jalen Moore, I was super pleased with him every time since he stepped in for Josh Simmons until this game. I felt like, well, okay, that's going to work great if he's our backup, But this was the first time I was like, ooh, he doesn't exactly do the same things to me that Josh Simmons does.
Yeah.
So yes, we will welcome the return of the stud first round left tackle when he is able to. But for now, that does it for Chiefs Commanders. It was a weird game, but again, at the end of the day, it was a 21-point victory. The Chiefs have won all 5 this season by more than 13 points, which is just not something anybody's
No.
ever used to. We're not used to one game winning by 13, let alone all these comfortable walking away double-digit victories. It's been nice. So that was a great 21-0 second half by the good guys. And now we get to the main event, which is Chiefs v. Bills, and specifically Mahomes v. Allen, round 10. And Mahomes is 5-4 in those head-to-head matchups against Josh Allen. But the Chiefs, after they won the first regular season matchup between these teams in 2020, each quarterback has gone on their own separate 4-game winning streak, their own little journeys. And Josh Allen, it just depends on when the game is played, because when it's a regular season game, Josh Allen has not only beaten the Chiefs, he's beaten their asses. He's really really looked good and come away with a couple of the biggest losses in the Mahomes era, and certainly the last 4, the Bills have looked really really nice. And then we all know what happens when January rolls around and the script flips and the Chiefs take that regular season L and they turn it into a postseason dub. Um, this is the 10th meeting between these teams in 6 seasons, which is the NFL record for most meetings between non-division opponents in a 6-year span, which makes sense. They've got the 4 playoff games, which are very rarely going to match up with the same team 4 times in 6, or if it's been 5 seasons. And then the regular season, obviously the way that the NFL schedule works, you match up with the teams that finish in the same position as you do, and both of these teams are on 5+ game division winning streaks. So therefore, they're always matching up as AFC first round opponents. So before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, the gradings and the offense versus defense, what are your thoughts on the meaning of Chiefs Bills and kind of what this is going to do for both teams going into what's probably the game that they both circled going into the season as being, if not the most important, certainly right up
It is the NFL showcase. This
there.
is
Yes.
what the NFL wants to watch. It's what the fans want to watch, regardless of whether you hate the Chiefs or love the Chiefs. You watch this football game. Everyone watches the Chiefs anyway, but you watch this football game because it's always a spectacular showcase of both what the NFL wants everyone to be. You've got the high-profile quarterbacks Granted, the Bills defense this year has not been a top shelf opponent for a lot of teams, but Sean McDermott typically gets the most out of his guys. And then on the Chiefs side, we know Spags is in my opinion, he's the single greatest game planning defensive coordinator to ever live.
Agreed.
And Andy Reid. And so all of this comes through, again, another regular season game. I think that this, again, like I said, not just like for the NFL, for fans, but it's just fun for everybody to watch these games. Like this is
Yeah.
another opportunity for the Chiefs to go into Buffalo, which they haven't gone into Buffalo as many times recently. It's been more.
It's been 2 games in the Mahomes v. Allen. The other 8 or the other 7 have been in Arrowhead. The regular season matchup, the first one in 2020 was in Buffalo. Clyde ran all over them, and they had a great game there. And then the playoff game in 2023 when they went to Buffalo and Baltimore back to back. That's the only 2 games they've played in Buffalo. Oh, and then no, that was it. That was it. Yeah. So you're right. Absolutely. It's in Buffalo. That's a tough ask.
It's always fun though. I always love seeing them going into Buffalo and playing this kind of team. I think that they do the same, and they're also going to get up for this football game. It's not going to be a different one where we see the Chiefs start out slow because they're away. I think being in Buffalo against this team, they're not going to be sitting on their haunches. We'll say that.
Yeah. Nope. Completely agreed. The Bills also, okay, I did think I forgot one other game. That was the walk-off not walk-off, but the long touchdown run that Allen had in Buffalo in the regular season to hand the Chiefs the first loss of the year last year. That was also in Buffalo. So that's the 3 times out of the 9, and the other 6 have all been in Arrowhead. And this is it's a tough place to play. Obviously, it's a good atmosphere, and the crowd hates the Chiefs more than they hate even their own rivals. They're definitely, the crowd's going to get after it. Pat mentioned it today in the pressers that he knows that it's going to be as hostile of an environment as really the Chiefs will ever play in, because Super Bowls are neutral and everything else. It's going to be a zoo. So let's now talk about rest here. The Chiefs are on a 1-day shorter week, having played Monday Night Football than the Bills. The points per game, the Bills are still checking in at 29.6 points per game. They obviously dropped 40 against the Panthers this week to bump that up a little bit, but fortunately the Chiefs are right on their heels, almost 27 points a game. They've been performing a lot better in that aspect lately. Bills are plus 61 on the year. The Chiefs, on the strength of 5 blowout wins, are plus 83. So they're really getting things, keeping things out at arm's length. Net turnovers. This is something that the Bills, one of their super strengths that they've been over the last season plus is that Josh Allen stopped turning the ball over. He just straight up, he was a turnover machine. He made that his main focus. And they, last year they never lost the turnover battle one time in the entire season. And this year, they're only plus 2 on net turnovers. A lot of that's because they don't get a lot of takeaways. They are still taking care of the ball really well. But the Chiefs are plus 5. They picked up a late kind of token interception in the Commanders game. Red zone touchdown rate, we've got Bills 64%, Chiefs 70%. Another aspect where if you had told me kind of blind test which of these teams probably has a higher red zone touchdown rate with James Cook, who we'll talk about, I would have said probably the Bills. They have the tush push that they can run, but the Chiefs, they've been executing really well. They have a 70% red zone rate, and then penalties per game, they're about even. Of course, that'll probably come up in some way that will mean nothing to anybody that matters, but 7.3 penalties per game for the Bills, 7.0 for the Chiefs. What do you think about overall? We'll get into like offense, defense, success rates and stuff, but like, how do you think these teams match up as far as just like strength and strength? Like, how are you feeling?
I actually think that this Chiefs team is a nightmare for the Bills.
Yeah.
I don't think traditionally they want to play zone coverage. So as we have seen in the history of this matchup, it is a predominantly zone defense. Now they did get Maxwell Harrison back, who can play a little bit more in the slot outside.
First round pick.
Coverage.
Yep.
Fast guy. He's a little bit more sticky, but he is on the smaller side. So you can, if you want to line him up against Rashee Rice, please, I beg you, go right ahead.
Do you know, did he play against the Panthers? I didn't see. I know he's been
he did play.
like Trent. Okay. Gotcha. So he made his debut.
Season debut.
Got it.
So But I think this team, because of the way they can attack defenses vertically, the safety room is not good for the Bills. And we've
No.
seen miscommunications. We've seen guys get wide open downfield. Like I just feel like this offense is a very bad matchup for the Chiefs, for the Bills defense specifically. And
Hmm.
honestly, the Chiefs have a very good run defense right now.
Hmm.
Like they have an excellent, I wouldn't say excellent, they're like a top 12-ish unit in the NFL,
Sure.
across the board, but you see what they are able to do on early downs. They're running more run blitzes. You see Trent McDuffie blitz, you see linebackers blitz, you see other corners as well. Safeties come down. So they're executing their ideas, but also early down blitzing has aided them to be able to get more pressure on quarterbacks when they run play action, but also the run game to get more negative plays. So with this kind of offense for the Bills, kind of starts with James Cook. I
Yeah.
know everyone will
Let
say
him
Josh
cook.
Allen. I'm like, yeah, but no.
Hmm.
It's kind of James Cook, and because they are so reliant on the run, the physical, they bring in the extra offensive lineman at times as well.
Yeah.
Obviously now they have Jackson Hawes, a former Georgia Tech tight end who has been basically an extra offensive lineman for them. It's a little bit different. So I do think the Chiefs defense matches up okay. We know that Josh Allen always plays well against the Chiefs defense,
Yes.
regardless of the
He
weapons that he
plays well
has.
against everybody. He's a dog.
Yeah,
He's Josh Allen.
it's
Yeah.
just who he is. So
Yeah.
that there is still that aspect to it, but I think the biggest overwhelming factor is the Chiefs offense matching up against that defense.
Did you see the number of games in a row that the Chiefs have held their opponents under with a running back that didn't get 100 yards? Basically, the last time the Chiefs gave up a 100-yard rusher
I
to a running
don't.
back.
I did not see that.
Take a gut feeling stab. How many games do you think it's been since the Chiefs had a 100-yard rushing running back against them?
Probably 11.
So that's where I felt. I felt like probably sometime last year that it happened, but it
Yeah.
might have been close to a year ago. It's 34. They haven't given up.
34
It's
games?
34
No.
games. It's 34, which is crazy. That's over 2 seasons of games.
Didn't
And
James Cook have like a ton of yards against them that one
he must not have had 100
2013
rushing.
postseason? Okay.
I just saw the number that was posted that it was 34 games,
That's
and
insane.
it is insane, and it's certainly not one that if that gets broken in this game means that the Chiefs are in trouble.
Yeah.
Obviously, James Cook is a dude, and he's going to get his yards, and they're going to feed him. You would imagine. Now, some of the criticism that's been levied against Sean McDermott and this team is that they tend to tighten up against the Chiefs, and they kind of don't play their game, and they try and you know go blow for blow with Mahomes, and sometimes if even if their strength is running the ball, they kind of get away from that, and we'll see if kind of how the offensive game plan unfolds for the Bills, depending on if the Chiefs are cooking and if they're scoring and if the Bills are going to, so that'll be interesting. I have some EPA ranks just in some different aspects of the game that I just want to quickly go over. The Chiefs offense against the Bills defense in overall EPA, just for the team. Chiefs ranked third on offense. The Bills ranked 13th on defense, which I was a little surprised that they were
Yeah.
top half because they've been really struggling. But some of that could be, I mean, they have had some like the blowout win against the Panthers and all that stuff that
Yeah.
probably have helped that a lot. Passing EPA, the Chiefs offense ranks fourth. The Bills defense ranks third in passing EPA. Now, one big reason is because rushing EPA, Chiefs are seventh on offense. Bills are 28th on defense. They have been really, the passing EPA is good because teams are like, we don't need to pass. We can just go ahead and run right all over. So that's been a pretty big weakness for the Bills. How do you feel that the Chiefs offense, who's clearly clicking across the board, both passing and rushing, fourth and seventh, against a Bills defense that is strong against the pass, not against the run? The Chiefs rushing offense, I know they're seventh, but like, where did that seventh come from? Is that Pat? Is that, they're successful because they always go forward, especially Kareem Hunt, but even Pacheco, they really don't do a lot of negative stuff. They haven't lost a fumble this year. How do you like the pass versus run matchup with Chiefs offense and Bills defense?
As long as the Chiefs actually still are executing well in the run game, I'm pretty confident. Especially when we've seen them run a little bit more under center runs, a little more under center play action, which they've had to. I've been asking for it for years, and they finally have done it because it's needed in today's NFL. You have to be able to hold those linebackers because when you're in shotgun, they don't move. I've watched it for years. They just don't
Mhm.
move. They don't respect the handoff. They don't. So when you actually get under center and you turn your back to the defense, those linebackers have to think, okay, he could be getting handed the football off, and that
Yeah.
plays into the play action game too. So I appreciate their willingness to do that, but I'm a little skeptical of how good the run game actually is. I don't think I think it's kind of a fake number for me because
Agreed.
while they've gotten it going a little bit here and there, it's still not a great unit. But I do think that, no Ed Oliver for this game. If he's one of their best
It's
defensive
massive.
tackles, if not the best defensive tackle, like it's just
And they were
it's a
28th
massive
with Ed.
difference.
So
Yeah,
like,
so
they're
it's
they're gonna, yeah, it's a big deal.
I'd
Uh
love to see Brashard Smith get a little bit more in this game too.
yeah, me too, certainly. And I think he will. I just based on the available snaps with Pacheco being down and just I'm sure they'll elevate Elijah Mitchell. I guess we haven't talked about that, but obviously without that elevation, they would just have Kareem and Brashard. So they probably want a third back on the roster for game day. Flip side of the ball, Bills offense against Chiefs defense. Overall EPA, Bills are fourth on offense. Makes total sense. Chiefs are ninth on defense, which feels a little low as far as I mean, like especially these last couple weeks, they pitched they've allowed 24 points in 3 games, which is their second best 3 game stretch in points allowed in the Spags era. I was really shocked it wasn't first, but they allowed 22 in 3 games back in 2019. But they're playing out of their minds right now. Passing EPA for the Bills, they're ranked sixth. The Chiefs defense is ranked fourth against the pass. And then rushing EPA, the Bills have the second highest rush EPA. I would assume that's just because Jonathan Taylor exists, even though the Bills offense is right there. Josh Allen and James Cook. I mean,
Yeah.
they're two of the harder rushing matchups to have. Chiefs defense ranks 22nd against the run in EPA, but some of that's game script, some of that's just kind of the Chiefs kind of pick and choose. Austin and I always joke and say they choose when to let you run. Like they kind of decide, like, oh, this game, you've got a stud running back. We'll go ahead and crank it up this time. But how do you feel the Bills offense will manage the Chiefs defense in this
I mean, they're going to run James Cook at them, and they're going to
one? Yeah,
run
they
some
should.
quarterback, yeah, some quarterback power. I feel like that's going to happen as well. Every game, it does feel like the Bills do that to the Chiefs defense because that's one of the things that they do struggle with is the quarterback read option. And when you have the threat of the run, like with James Cook, it's going to bring more to the table there for Josh Allen to have as well. So they're going to have to be very disciplined and continue to do what they've been doing over the past couple of weeks, getting more of those run blitzes, safeties, corners, linebackers, all kind of triggering downhill a little bit earlier. But at the end of the day, I think this game is going to be won or lost by how they impact Josh Allen, the quarterback, as a passer. And this is still a very good unit in the back end, regardless of the matchups with Jamari Connor, which most of you probably know how I feel about Jamari Connor.
Yep.
Not my favorite player ever,
No. No.
and I would like to see more. I think, I'm not gonna say it because everyone wants Noah Williams to come back for this game, but they're gonna run more 12 personnel. And
Yeah.
honestly, the Chiefs are gonna play a lot more base probably in this game, like they did last week against the Commanders. If you're gonna see more 12 personnel, more heavy personnel as well, probably gonna see more heavy 4-3 base defense from the Chiefs as well. That's where you need to be a little bit more worried about the tight ends, Dalton Kincaid over the middle of the field, and then Khalil Shakir, as well as some of their bigger wide receivers in the middle too. So
Yeah.
it's going to be won or lost, and if they can defend the middle of the field, in my opinion.
I like it. A couple more numbers I'll just put out here. The late down success rate by the Chiefs offense is third in the NFL. I'm a little surprised it's not first, but 54.5% late down success rate. The Bills defense is 20th, which means that there are 19 teams with on defense with worse late down success rate. So they're middle to below average on late down success rate. And then uh pass rate, pass rate over expected. The Bills defense has had the lowest pass rate over expected of any team. That kind of goes along with their defensive passing EPA. The fact that teams are running on them a lot, they're ranked number one in pass rate over expected. But of course, In comes Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are number one in pass rate over expected on
Yeah.
offense with 8.3% over expected. So that's a matchup where, the Bills aren't really used to teams coming in and slinging it. That's not really a matchup that their defense has dealt with a lot. And the Chiefs, meanwhile, it doesn't really matter what the matchup is. They're going to throw the ball. They're number one on early down pass rate. They're number one in all kinds of passing statistics in general. Passing success rate, the offense is number one right now. It's going to be it's going to be a Chiefs passing attack against a Bills defense that hasn't really seen an offense like this so far.
Yeah, and that's again, Patrick Mahomes is playing maybe the best football of his career from a totality perspective. He's running the
Sure.
ball really well. Obviously, we've seen him take off multiple times and scramble, but he's getting the ball out fast because he knows what he's looking at. Like he sees everything. So I don't believe that the Bills defense matches up, regardless of what the numbers say, very well against this Patrick Mahomes offense. There's too many things that you have to worry about. The bringing back Rashee Rice is just that final, Thanos putting the final gem in the gauntlet. Like
Yep.
it's what's going to happen, and that's what makes this team specifically so difficult to game plan against and to execute against because they can win however you want them to. They can play whatever defense or whatever offense you want. You want to run the ball, fine, we'll figure that out. If you want us to play against zone, we can do that. We can beat you in man. It doesn't matter. Like they are built to defeat just about any defense.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten away on this show from doing these like meaningless specific score predictions because I don't really care. No, there's no accountability in sports media for anybody that does a pre-game score prediction. Nobody ever, but the Chiefs are 1.5 point favorites on the road in Buffalo, which when I first saw that line after the Oakland, the Raiders game, I was a little surprised to see the Bills as home underdogs. That, typically in the last couple of years, you wouldn't have seen that. But it just goes to show that Chiefs are playing really well. I'll be shocked if the Chiefs are underdogs, of course, again for a while. Do you feel like I mean, I can tell by the way you're talking about this game. Bills are in for an uphill battle on Sunday, right? Like you feel like if this game's played 10 times, Chiefs probably win what, 7 of them? I mean, somewhere around there. Pretty good matchup for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that this is again, and most of the time I would be probably on the fence saying the Bills probably win the regular season game, but I mean, I watch them. I don't feel the same way about this Bills team specifically. Like it feels like
Yeah.
the Chiefs from last year, but they're not winning those one score games, or they're not winning as many of them as the Chiefs did. Where
Yeah.
they're going through that offensive transition. They're doing it a little bit differently because they run the ball really, really well. The Chiefs didn't really do that last year, and they
No.
just couldn't really throw the football either. But right now,
How'd they win 15 games?
it's luck of the Irish, man. That's all it was. There's just so many things that happened that they
What a season.
can't replicate. But it just feels like this team right now is better than the Bills, and that's not something I usually have felt during the regular season.
I agree.
But I'm excited to watch this game. Again, anything can happen. It's the NFL. It
Right.
is the Bills. It's a rivalry game that they are going to come to play. Like I don't expect this to be an easy victory by any stretch, but it does feel like this team is clicking. They are playing excellent football, and the vibes are really, really high everywhere from top down in this football team right now.
Dano, the vibes on the pod are high whenever you're on. I super appreciate your time. We'll have to get all three of us together at some point in the future and talk a little ball when Austin gets back. But thank you again for stepping in. Once again, everybody, in Harm's Way 19 on Twitter. Go watch him. Go watch the RGR coverage. He does great work. Appreciate talking to you, and we'll talk to you next time, buddy.
Always, man. Appreciate you.